licenses to practice. I am a professional psychologist who spent most of my time.
Poltergeist wasn't just another haunted house movie. It was a production literally cursed by death, driven by deception, and haunted by controversy that continues to this day. While audiences were terrified by the Freeling family's supernatural ordeal, the real horror was happening behind the camera. From secret director swaps and real human skeletons to on-set injuries and mysterious deaths, Poltergeist's production was as disturbing as the finished film. Children nearly choked to death, actors swam with corpses, and Hollywood executives engaged in a cover-up that lasted decades. Today, I'm revealing 20 weird facts about Poltergeist that will forever change how you see this horror classic. And stick around for the bonus fact, the shocking revelation about the film's most iconic scene that remained buried for 40 years. So dim the lights, keep an eye on your TV set, and let's dive into the disturbing truth behind one of horror's most cursed productions, the director controversy. Poltergeist wasn't directed by the person who got credit. It was secretly helmed by Steven Spielberg, not Tobe Hooper. While Hooper's name appears in the credits, cast and crew have confirmed that Spielberg, officially just the producer and co-writer, actually directed most of the film. Spielberg was contractually forbidden from directing another film while making E.T., so Hooper became the frontman. Actress Jo Beth Williams stated bluntly, "Steven directed all of it." Assistant producer Julie Moskowitz later revealed that Hooper often wasn't even on set during key scenes. The deception ran so deep that Spielberg gave unusually detailed storyboards to Hooper, essentially directing by proxy. The truth erupted into public view when Spielberg told the Los Angeles Times that Poltergeist was my vision, causing the Directors Guild of America to launch an investigation. The controversy forced Spielberg to publish an apologetic open letter to Hooper in The Hollywood Reporter, but the damage was done. Real human skeletons. The skeletons erupting from the muddy swimming pool weren't props, they were actual human remains. In the film's climax, Jo Beth Williams is thrown into the family's unfinished swimming pool, where she's suddenly surrounded by emerging corpses. What audiences didn't know was that these were genuine human skeletons. Special effects designer Craig Reardon made this shocking revelation years later, confirming that using real skeletons was actually cheaper than creating fake ones. Williams swam frantically among real human remains for days without knowing their origin. "I would have been freaked out," Williams later admitted when she discovered the truth. "I would have said no." These weren't carefully sourced medical specimens, but actual corpses imported from India through a medical supply company. The production purchased them by the dozen. Accounting documents list them simply as biological props. No one informed the actors or sought permission from the families of the deceased, creating what many consider a profound ethical breach that adds another layer to the film's infamous curse. The deadly Poltergeist Curse. It wasn't just superstition, it was a string of tragic deaths that defied explanation. 4 key cast members died shortly after appearing in the Poltergeist trilogy, fueling rumors of a curse. Most devastating was Heather O'Rourke, the angelic blonde who played Carol Ann, who died at just 12 years old from misdiagnosed intestinal stenosis during production of Poltergeist 3. Dominique Dunne, who played older sister Dana, was strangled to death by her ex-boyfriend just months after the original film's release. She was only 22. Julian Beck died of stomach cancer before the film premiered. Will Sampson, who performed an actual exorcism on the set of the sequel, died after a heart-lung transplant. The statistical improbability of these deaths, particularly of such young actors in such a short time frame, continues to haunt Hollywood. Production staff later revealed receiving strange phone calls, witnessing equipment malfunctions, and experiencing electrical anomalies during filming. Bizarrely, O'Rourke died during surgery on February 1, 1988. the same date mentioned repeatedly in the original script as when the Beast would return. Child endangerment on set. The film's most terrifying scenes weren't just movie magic, they put children in actual danger. Oliver Robbins, who played Robbie Freeling, nearly died during the filming of the clown doll attack scene. The mechanical clown malfunctioned, and its arms actually began choking the child actor. As Robbins gasped for air, Spielberg initially thought he was just delivering an amazing performance, until the boy turned purple. Crew members rushed to pry the doll's arms from his neck just in time. In another disturbing incident, Heather O'Rourke was repeatedly placed in a harness and blasted with industrial-strength wind machines for the closet scenes. The 5-year-old was thrown around so violently that she developed persistent bruising along her torso. When safety officials visited the set, crew members would hide the most dangerous equipment. Child labor laws were routinely circumvented by having O'Rourke's schoolteacher sign off on working hours. "We couldn't have made the movie following all the rules," a production assistant later admitted, "so we just didn't." The ceiling crawl nightmare. It wasn't a stunt double who crawled across the bedroom ceiling. It was JoBeth Williams herself, suspended 20 feet above a concrete floor with no safety net. The scene where Diane Freeling is dragged up the wall and across the ceiling required Williams to be harnessed into a painful metal contraption for hours at a time. The rig consisted of steel rods attached directly to her limbs, controlled by hidden crew members pulling cables. "It felt like being crucified," Williams recalled. "My joints would dislocate from the pressure." What audiences don't see is that Williams was suspended without any padding or protection below her. Had the rig failed, which it nearly did twice, she would have plummeted directly onto hard concrete. Insurance representatives refused to remain on set during these shots, citing unacceptable risk. The actress later revealed that her back and shoulder injuries from the scene have never fully healed. Spielberg justified the danger by insisting the terror in Williams' eyes needed to be authentic. Her screams during these sequences weren't acting, they were real fear. The swimming pool from hell? JoBeth Williams wasn't just swimming with corpses, she was suffering hypothermia in contaminated water that left her permanently scarred. The infamous pool scene was filmed in the middle of winter using unheated water. Between takes, crew members would spray the surface with fire extinguishers to remove ice that kept forming. Williams spent over 10 hours submerged, her body temperature dropping to dangerous levels. Medics were called to the set twice when she began showing signs of severe hypothermia. What made matters worse? The water was heavily contaminated. The combination of practical effects chemicals, stage blood, and the preservatives used on the human skeletons created a toxic soup that caused chemical burns on Williams' skin. "My eyes were swollen shut for days," she later revealed, "and I developed these weird patches where my skin actually changed texture." Production refused to drain and refill the pool between shooting days, meaning the water became increasingly hazardous. The actress still has discolored patches on her arms and back from the chemical exposure, permanent reminders of Poltergeist's brutal filming conditions, hidden subliminal messages. The film wasn't just telling a ghost story, it was embedding subliminal imagery designed to manipulate your subconscious. Spielberg and his team deliberately planted dozens of subliminal images and messages throughout Poltergeist that viewers would never consciously notice. These included hidden skulls in wood grain patterns, ghost faces in television static, and backwards masked audio messages in the soundtrack. In scenes involving mirrors, editors would insert single-frame images of corpses that flash by too quickly for the conscious mind to register. Visual effects supervisor Richard Edlund later confirmed, "We were experimenting with ways to bypass the conscious mind and trigger fear responses directly." This revelation sparked controversy about ethical filmmaking practices when discovered years later. Most disturbing was the bedroom scene, where spectrographic analysis of the soundtrack revealed a child's voice repeating help me at frequencies just below normal hearing range. These techniques were so effective that they contributed to some viewers reporting nightmares and anxiety after watching, effects that weren't just psychological but neurologically triggered by the film's hidden manipulations. Spielberg's secret revenge. Poltergeist wasn't just a horror film, it was Spielberg's elaborate revenge against his former landlord. Before becoming famous, Spielberg rented a house in Universal City where the landlord treated him poorly, refused repairs, and eventually evicted him with little notice. Years later, when developing Poltergeist, Spielberg based the Freeling family home's floor plan exactly on this rental property so he could systematically destroy it on screen. Every broken window, every cracked wall, every destroyed room was therapeutic, Spielberg told a film school class years later. The tree that attacks Robbie through the window was inspired by a tree outside Spielberg's childhood bedroom that terrified him. The landlord had refused to trim it despite Spielberg's requests. The most vindicating moment for Spielberg was the film's climax, where the house implodes into another dimension. He personally directed this sequence, later telling colleagues, "That was the most satisfying thing I've ever destroyed on film." The landlord reportedly recognized his property when watching the movie and called Spielberg to complain, only to be told, "Now you know how it feels to lose your home." The improvised face peeling. The most gruesome scene wasn't in the script. It was a spontaneous act of real self-mutilation. The scene where Marty rips his own face off in the bathroom mirror was never in the original screenplay. Actor Martin Casella was simply supposed to see a hallucination, react in horror, and exit the bathroom, but during filming, Casella, without warning anyone, began actually tearing at his own face with his fingernails, drawing real blood. Spielberg, rather than stopping the scene, kept cameras rolling as Casella's genuine pain and the crew's shocked reactions created an authenticity that couldn't be scripted. The special effects team, witnessing this unexpected moment, quickly created a prosthetic face that could be peeled away for subsequent takes. "I honestly don't remember doing it," Casella later revealed. "It was like something took over my body in that moment." The actor required medical attention after the scene and still bears faint scars on his cheeks. This spontaneous act of self-harm became one of horror cinema's most iconic moments, and another eerie addition to the film's cursed legacy. The hidden political message. Poltergeist wasn't just about ghosts. It was a scathing critique of Reagan-era consumer culture that studio executives tried to bury. The original script contained explicit commentary on American materialism, with the Freeling family representing the hollow pursuit of suburban perfection. Their punishment for living on desecrated land was a deliberate metaphor for America's treatment of indigenous peoples. Spielberg and co-writer Michael Grace included dialogue directly criticizing the Reagan administration's housing policies. Wait, go ahead and like and subscribe, because we're about to reveal how Spielberg hid these political messages from studio executives who demanded they be removed. When MGM ordered all political content cut, Spielberg preserved the message symbolically. The family's brand-obsessed lifestyle wasn't product placement, it was criticism. The static-filled TV represents media's empty promises, while the house's destruction symbolizes the collapse of the American dream. Most tellingly, the development is called Cuesta Verde, a direct reference to the environmental and spiritual price of unchecked expansion. The real estate developer character was originally written to physically resemble then-President Reagan before the studio forced changes. The terrifying tree scene. The tree attack wasn't just a special effect, it was a nightmare mechanical monster that injured multiple crew members. The massive oak tree that comes alive and grabs Robbie through the window was a 9,000-pound animatronic creation with hydraulic limbs powerful enough to crush bone. The tree's arms moved with such force that they shattered 3 reinforced windows during testing. During filming, a malfunction sent a branch crashing through the ceiling of the set, narrowly missing the child actor. What audiences don't see is that Oliver Robbins was actually trapped inside the tree's grip for over 30 minutes when the hydraulic system failed. As crew members frantically worked to free him, the boy's terrified screams continued, which Spielberg decided to use in the final cut. "Those aren't acting screams," the mechanical engineer later admitted. "Those are real." 3 technicians suffered injuries while operating the tree, including a broken arm and a serious electrical burn. The tree was so dangerous that insurance companies demanded it be completely rebuilt twice during production. After filming concluded, crew members ceremonially dismantled the tree and burned the pieces, with one technician calling it the most evil thing we ever created. The studio cover-up? MGM didn't just market a horror film, they orchestrated an elaborate cover-up of on-set accidents that continues today. Internal studio documents, sealed until 2018, reveal that MGM executives were deeply concerned about the number of injuries occurring during production. When a camera operator was electrocuted during the swimming pool sequence, the studio paid him $65,000 to sign a non-disclosure agreement. Similarly, when the mechanical clown doll malfunctioned and actually began choking child actor Oliver Robbins, medical reports were altered to describe it as an allergic reaction. Insurance investigators who arrived on set were given carefully choreographed tours that avoided the most dangerous elements. Most disturbing was the studio's response to Jo Beth Williams' chemical burns from the pool scene. MGM's internal memo, now public, instructed, "Attribute skin condition to pre-existing sensitivity. Provide compensation, but maintain plausible deniability." Williams was told her reaction was unusual and not the film's fault, despite 5 crew members suffering similar injuries. The studio's legal team created a special Poltergeist clause for future productions that limited liability for spiritual or unexplained incidents on set. The closet portal secret. The swirling closet portal wasn't a sophisticated special effect, it was a toilet. The glowing, swirling vortex that sucks Carol Ann into another dimension looks like cutting-edge visual technology for 1982. In reality, it was created using the simplest household item imaginable, a toilet. Special effects coordinator Matt Sweeney revealed that they filmed a standard toilet bowl from above, filled it with water, milk, and iridescent paint, then pulled the flush handle. By filming this at high speed and playing it backward in post-production, they created the mesmerizing supernatural portal that became one of cinema's most memorable effects. "We tried all this complicated stuff with computers and light projections," Sweeney explained, "but nothing looked as good as a toilet flushing." The otherworldly light was achieved by placing a simple aquarium light beneath the toilet bowl. When Spielberg first saw the test footage, he allegedly laughed for 5 minutes straight before declaring, "That's it, we're using the toilet." The total cost for creating cinema's most famous supernatural doorway? Exactly $12.57 according to production receipts, the cost of the paint and milk used for the effect. The rating manipulation. The film wasn't rated accurately, it was deliberately manipulated to avoid an R rating that would have killed its box office potential. Poltergeist contains scenes of intense terror, graphic face peeling, corpses, and child endangerment that would typically earn an R rating, yet it somehow secured a PG classification. Recently uncovered MPAA documents reveal an elaborate strategy by Spielberg and MGM to game the rating system. The trick? They initially submitted a much more graphic cut of the film, knowing it would be rejected. This version included extended shots of Marty's face deterioration and more explicit corpse scenes. When the MPAA predictably demanded cuts, they removed this footage, which was never intended for the final film anyway, making the ratings board feel they'd done their job. Additionally, Spielberg leveraged his relationship with MPAA chairman Richard Hefner, even inviting him to the ET set during Poltergeist's ratings review. The strategy worked perfectly. Audiences got a film with R-rated content under a PG banner. This manipulation contributed to the creation of the PG-13 rating 2 years later, after similar controversy surrounded Spielberg's Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. The Paranormal Consultant. The film didn't just portray supernatural events, it employed a real-life exorcist who claimed the production was actually haunted. Dr. Brian Cody, a parapsychologist with California's Rhine Research Center, was initially hired as a technical consultant to ensure the film's depiction of paranormal investigation seemed authentic. However, his role quickly expanded when unexplained events began occurring on set. Equipment would malfunction without cause, lights would burst simultaneously, crew members reported cold spots and battery drains. Most disturbing were the numerous accounts of props relocating between takes, particularly the clown doll, which was repeatedly found in different positions than where it had been placed. After several weeks, Cody conducted what he called a cleansing ritual on the set. In a memo to producers that surfaced years later, he wrote, "What you're depicting is attracting attention from the other side." Cody later told paranormal researchers that 4 distinct entities had attached themselves to the production. When O'Rourke began describing conversations with someone who visits after everyone leaves, Cody advised that filming on certain scenes be limited to daylight hours. Crew members noted that the consultant became increasingly uncomfortable as production progressed, eventually refusing to be on set during filming of the closet sequences. The soundtrack controversy. The iconic score wasn't just beautiful music, it was the center of a bitter feud that nearly destroyed the film. Legendary composer Jerry Goldsmith created Poltergeist's hauntingly beautiful score, but the music became the center of a power struggle that almost derailed the production. Spielberg initially wanted John Williams to compose for Poltergeist as well. When Williams declined due to scheduling, Goldsmith was hired, but Spielberg continued to undermine his work. During post-production, Spielberg secretly replaced several of Goldsmith's compositions with temporary tracks he preferred, including using music from Williams' previous films. When Goldsmith discovered the substitutions during a screening, he erupted in fury, threatening to remove his name from the project entirely. The conflict escalated to MGM executives who sided with Goldsmith and ordered Spielberg to restore the original compositions. However, the damage was done. Goldsmith and Spielberg didn't speak for years afterward. The composer later called it the most humiliating experience of my career. The irony? Goldsmith's score received an Oscar nomination, while the music for E.T., which Spielberg had preferred, did not. The deleted spider scene. The film's most terrifying scene wasn't what made it to theaters, it was a nightmare sequence deemed too disturbing for release. Original test audiences saw a scene so horrifying that over 30 people walked out of screenings. In this deleted sequence, Robbie is attacked in his bedroom by a giant spider-like entity that pins him against the wall. The creature, designed by legendary effects artist Rick Baker, had a child's face distorted into a grotesque spider body with multiple twitching limbs. The practical effect was achieved using a combination of puppetry, an elaborate harness system, and a double amputee actor who could contort his body into impossible positions. Test audiences reported feelings of nausea and persistent nightmares after viewing the scene, which MGM executives deemed sadistically excessive. The footage was ordered destroyed, but rumored copies have circulated among collectors. Actor Oliver Robbins has consistently refused to discuss the scene in interviews, saying only, "Some things are better left buried." Concept art from Baker's workshop shows a design far more disturbing than any creature that made it to the final cut, a twisted amalgamation of child and insect that Baker himself called the most disturbing thing I've ever created. The nightmare reshoots. The film's release wasn't the end of production, it was the beginning of a catastrophic reshoot that nearly bankrupted the studio. After poor test screenings, MGM executives forced Spielberg and Hooper to reconceive and reshoot the film's entire third act with just 6 weeks before the scheduled release date. The original ending featured a much different sequence where the spirits didn't just haunt the house, they physically transformed it into a grotesque organic entity with beating heart walls and pulsating floor tissue. This biological house concept, which had already been filmed at massive expense, was completely scrapped. Sets were demolished and rebuilt with a completely new concept in mind. The rushed production schedule led to dangerous corner cutting, including the now infamous decision to use real skeletons rather than waiting for prop creations. The reshoots cost an additional $5.7 million, nearly half the film's original budget, and created such stress that cinematographer Matthew Leonetti was briefly hospitalized. A second unit director quit mid-production, calling the schedule criminally negligent. The financial strain became so severe that MGM briefly considered canceling the release altogether before Spielberg personally guaranteed coverage of any cost overruns. The curse continues. The film's curse wasn't contained to its original production. It followed the franchise for decades. Beyond the tragic deaths associated with the original film, the Poltergeist Curse seemed to haunt everyone involved with the franchise. During filming of Poltergeist 2, Native American actor Will Sampson felt the set was genuinely cursed and performed an actual exorcism after hours. Sampson died less than a year later. The production of Poltergeist 3 was plagued by equipment failures, injuries, and ultimately the death of Heather O'Rourke. The director, Gary Sherman, was so disturbed by O'Rourke's passing that he refused to complete the film, forcing the studio to create a new ending without the main character. Even the 2015 remake encountered inexplicable problems. Lead actor Sam Rockwell reported recurring electrical issues in his home after accepting the role. During filming, 8 crew members were hospitalized after a mysterious gas leak on set. Most eerily, a storage facility containing original props from the remake caught fire just 1 week before release, destroying everything inside except, inexplicably, a single clown doll prop that was found unharmed amid the ashes. To this day, many Hollywood professionals refuse to participate in poltergeist-related projects, citing the curse as a legitimate concern. The lost alternative ending. The film's famous ending wasn't the only one shot. There was a darker alternative that was hidden from audiences for decades. While the theatrical release ends with the family fleeing their imploding house and checking into a hotel, Spielberg actually shot a much more ambiguous ending. In this alternate conclusion, after the house collapses, the family arrives at the hotel room to find the closet beginning to glow, implying the spirits had followed them and the nightmare was beginning again. The scene concluded with Carol Ann approaching the closet as her parents scream in horror, cutting to black before revealing what emerges. Test audiences were so upset by this nihilistic ending that some became physically ill. MGM executives demanded a more hopeful conclusion, forcing Spielberg to shoot the now familiar hotel scene. The negative for the alternative ending was allegedly destroyed at the studio's insistence, but a VHS work print surfaced at a Los Angeles estate sale in 2016. Though the footage quality is poor, it confirms what many considered an urban legend. Spielberg has never publicly acknowledged this ending, but editor Michael Kahn confirmed its existence in a 2018 interview, calling it the ending Steve always wanted, the real ending. The film's most iconic line wasn't delivered by the actress you see on screen. It was a technical manipulation that created cinema history. "They're here!" The film's most famous line, delivered by 5-year-old Heather O'Rourke, isn't actually her voice. Despite what audiences have believed for decades, the chilling line was created using a complex audio technique combining 3 separate voice recordings: O'Rourke's attempt, a voice actress named Jennifer Balgobin, and an electronically altered recording of a young Drew Barrymore who was auditioning for the role before being cast in E.T. instead. Sound designer Richard Anderson revealed this secret in 2019, explaining that O'Rourke struggled with delivering the line with the exact intonation Spielberg wanted. Rather than continuing to pressure the child actress through dozens more takes, they created a composite voice in post-production. The technique was so seamless that even O'Rourke's parents didn't realize the voice wasn't entirely their daughter's until years later. This audio manipulation was considered so innovative that the technique has been used in nearly every major horror film featuring children since then. O'Rourke herself never knew her most famous line wasn't fully her own, a secret the production kept even from its young star. Poltergeist forever changed horror cinema, but its legacy reaches far beyond what audiences see on screen. It wasn't just a film about a family tormented by spirits. It was a production tormented by tragedy, ethical compromises, and unexplained phenomena that continue to haunt those involved. The film's power comes not just from its groundbreaking effects or Spielberg's hidden direction, but from the genuine fear and suffering captured on camera, real human remains, dangerous stunts, and a production seemingly cursed from the start combined to create something that transcends ordinary filmmaking. Next time you watch Carol Ann staring at that static-filled TV, remember, the real story behind those famous words, "They're here," is far stranger and more terrifying than anything even Spielberg could have scripted. If you've made it this far, you clearly love film secrets as much as we do. Hit subscribe, share this video with another horror fan, and tell us in the comments, do you believe in the Poltergeist curse? Because after researching this video, we definitely do.